Today, we're talking about faith in the fire, why a spiritual foundation matters in life's hardest moments. Now, before I introduce today's guest, today's episode is a bit different. It's deeply personal. And honestly, I think long overdue. I've invited someone very special to me, Pastor Ray Longward of the Experience Vineyard Church in Rockville Center, New York, to join me for what I'm calling my coming out episode, not as a divorce coach, not as a podcast host, but as a follower of Christ. And while I've always led Journey Beyond Divorce with love, integrity, and compassion, what many of you may not know is that at the heart of everything I do is my relationship with Jesus. I'm getting teary-eyed. In today's conversation, Ray and I are going to explore the power of faith during life's biggest challenges, the major crises that we face, and even the minor ones, and the major ones like divorce. We're going to talk about shifting from religion to relationship, which I think is a really important conversation to have, and how being spiritually grounded and how a spiritually grounded church can be an emotionally intelligent, radically welcoming place to come, and how faith has quietly shaped every part of my life and the work that I do. With no further ado, welcome, Ray.
Hey, thanks for having me, Karen. Such an honor and a privilege to be with you. And as you do your thing, as I get to support you, so glad to be here.
Ray and we go back so far. What year did you join the church?
Oh man, 2011, end
Okay.
of 2011, beginning of 2012.
Yeah. And Ray came in as the youth pastor, and much quicker than he expected was put on the short list to be the lead pastor and then chosen to be the lead pastor. And during that phase, we got to know each other really well. I was still a fairly young coach, and I invited him to enjoy my services. I said, life coaching is all about transition. You're going through a transition. Can I support you? And that year was such an incredible blessing for me.
Blessing for me as well, just to have you and the gift and the craft that you have to apply it to me personally, aside from what I do, but apply it to me for who I am, right? Encompassing all aspects of my life rather than the compartmentalization that we do so well. So it was super helpful in creating a baseline of wholeness for my life that I continue to work on today.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do such a beautiful job, Ray. I just love you dearly.
Feelings mutual, you know that.
Folks, I was raised Roman Catholic, and it wasn't until I found the Vineyard Church that I found a very different path into my spiritual life. And maybe it started in the beginning of my divorce. I actually found a 12-step program. Maybe that was the first baby step toward having a direct relationship with my higher power, as they called it in the program. And so we were raised Roman Catholic. My parents were an Easter and Christmas attendees, but we had to go every week. And we would grab the bulletin out of the church and run up the block to the soda pop store. And I would order a toasted bagel and chocolate eclair and egg cream. And that's what we would do. And later in life, I got back into the Catholic Church, but it always felt like it was religion, not relationship. There was the priest and the bishop and the pope and all of these people between me and God. And whether or not other Catholics, that was just my experience.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, finding the Vineyard Church invited relationship. And that was, I was divorced in 2006. I had 5 different people say, you should check out the Vineyard Church. And I kept putting it aside until the fifth person asked. I thought God might come down and slam me off the side of the head with a cast iron pan if I didn't listen to him. And so I came, and my that was in 2009, and my life has never been the same since. And I really feel like even my calling into life coaching, which I started in 2010, was all because of this path that I was put on by my journey in my spiritual walk.
Yeah.
And I want to just talk a little bit about my fear of having this conversation with each of you, the listeners, and largely because what I see going on in our country is a lot of Christianity that doesn't line up with what Jesus taught or what's stated in the Bible, and a lot of judgment, a lot of condemnation, a lot of higher than thou, and talking the talk but not walking the walk. And so I was so afraid to actually have this conversation, which is why I invited Ray on to do it with me, because I didn't want to harm my relationship with all of the people who have learned and followed and gotten value out of my podcast and what we do at Journey Beyond Divorce. And yet there was this other part of me. I felt like God was like, it's time, Karen, it's time.
Yeah.
And yet I didn't do it out of fear. And so
Mhm.
I am actually here a little bit afraid. And that's kind of one of the things that I've gotten out of my faith is fear is never of God. And if I'm afraid, I need to double down and do it,
Right.
because I need to always push through my fear, because there is a promise on the other side of that fear. And so for you listening today, I am going to take a leap right now, and I am going to take a moment and pray for each of you.
Mm.
And this is what I do so often with my clients when invited. And so if you would just take a moment, and if you can close your eyes, I just want to speak to our Heavenly Father, and I just pray for each person listening, God, that your presence would be felt in their heart, in their home, in their circumstances right now, that the peace and joy that you promise, that the unconditional love that I have experienced over a decade plus, being in your presence, that each listener, wherever they are, would feel you, would feel the comfort of your peace, the lightness of your joy, the unconditionality of your love. And I think for our audience in particular, going through divorce is so hard. And for many of you, there's been such a loss of self. For many of you, there's been a beating down, a belittling, a berating, or maybe just being an iced out. Whatever your situation, it's a hard season to be going through. And one of the things I always ask is, what's the spiritual foundation that you stand on? And I think that, Ray, in our church, there's such an opposite of what we see in the world and in the country. Like, we have such a beautiful invitation. And I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit about
Yeah.
our philosophy and how we welcome all human beings into our church.
That's right. Yeah, Karen, thank you for that prayer. And I just want to say, way to go. Thank you for having me to be part of your coming out party. It's really, really, really an honor and a privilege for that. And I think for the listeners to know so much of who you are and what you do, walking alongside people as they go through, for a lot of people, the darkest season of their lives, or one of them. And the light that you're able to bring is simply because of the light that you carry. And that's from your relationship with Jesus and the things that he's brought you through, right? And you're able to share a bit of that. And even if you don't say Jesus, and even if you don't come right out and profess your faith, you are showing it, you are displaying it. And so I think for us in our culture here at the Experience Vineyard Church, one of our biggest mottos is come as you are.
Mm,
Come as you are. And the open door policy that we have here, that there is no desire that we have for you to get everything right in life or to clean everything up before you enter church. Right. And I think a lot of us get caught up in that mindset. And for a lot of reasons, maybe it's because of the religious experiences that we've had in the past, or as we think about our spirituality, we think about how messed up maybe we are. And there's this thing that we navigate in our own minds, or that we create this barrier that in order to walk in church, we already have to be presented as clean and whole and healed. And it's just the opposite,
right.
right? The desire is for us to come to God, to come into even specifically our community of faith, our church, as you are, broken, busted up, messed up, whatever it may be, and just be amongst other people who are navigating similar things. And the beauty of what brings us together is that we surrender and submit all of our stuff, all of our mess to the foot of the cross and allow God to do what he does best. And that's walk alongside us, that's heal us, that's give us relationships with other people to walk alongside us. All those things happen when we present our authentic self. And
Yeah.
so authenticity is a high priority for us here. And if we think about it, it's the way Jesus navigated his ministry. I think a lot of people think of Jesus in the context of preaching sermons and healing people and doing all those things, which he did, and he did fabulously. But there was also this aspect of Jesus that a lot of people overlook. He was a friend of sinners, right? He spent a lot of time with people who were not in synagogues, right? We talk about the story of Matthew, the tax collector, who was the scum of the earth at that time. And
Yep.
here comes Jesus walking up to this guy, tapping him on the shoulder and say, "Come follow me. I want you. As messed up, as dirty, as a liar, as a cheater you are, I want you with me." Because Jesus has this amazing ability to see the best in people aside from all the other elements that they're carrying, all the other mess that they're walking through. He sees the best in people and he's able to call that out of them. And so for us in our culture, in our community of faith, we want to do that. We want to provide a space where people can come as they are, wherever they are, however they are, and allow God to call out the best in them aside from what they're navigating. And so we hold that at high value. And I never want to see that, at least while I'm here, shift from how we do life as followers of Jesus in this context.
One of the things that I remember being so struck by was coming into church on Sunday and everybody was talking to each other. It was like a big Italian family without the yelling. There was a lot of laughter and hugs. And what I noticed more than anything was when you asked someone how they were, there wasn't a big smile and a fine. Like there was these real relationships. And guys, in our church, we have these small group meetings. And so you get to meet with other friends and people in the church in between Sundays. And what it did was it developed this beautiful depth of relationship. And then you
Yeah.
would come to church on Sunday and everyone was very real and honest about what they were struggling with. And I remember when I was at my other church, it was everyone was very buttoned up and it was like everything was good. There was you couldn't feel comfortable coming broken because everyone was in their Sunday best and you didn't talk about those things. And we have so many different communities who were welcomed into our church. And I remember when I first joined, the lead pastor at the time saying how we're like a spiritual hospital. And I just love that idea that no matter what your background, if you've been struggling with divorce or drugs or pornography, or you're tattooed and you were in jail or whatever the case may be, like we love you, come. I think that's so counter to what we're hearing in the media about Christianity today, that it's such a condemning and judgmental
Right.
religion, but it's not supposed to be.
Right. No, not at all. And I think the hard part about our faith that makes it muddy is that it involves humans, right? Right? It involves humans, it involves our humanity, it involves our brokenness and our own skewed images of ourselves and other people and our assumptions and our judgments and all of that. And so because of that, I think a lot of that comes out, right? And here's the unfortunate side of this. I would say more so now, but I think this has been all throughout history. The tendency is to focus on Christianity at its worst and Christianity at its best, right? Like, for whatever reason, there is this general idea of people who profess their faith in Jesus and keeping an eye on what they're doing and what they're saying and seeing how they respond in the negative sense, or highlighting failures or issues that come up in people's lives who are professing Christians, right? But there's never really that explosion or that viral clip of a church doing something awesome. And I get it, right? Like, you don't want to expose those moments and expose those people and say, look what we're doing. But you just don't hear about the church that is doing those amazing things and walking alongside people, that's feeding those people who are hungry, that is taking care of the orphan and the widows in our communities. And so I think because of that, there's already this assumption that a lot of people have as Christians being hypocritical. And I'm not saying that they aren't, right? That does exist. But I think part of it too is Christianity, as we follow Jesus, it is the aim to be like him. It's the journey beyond ourselves to be like him. And so because of that, there's things that happen along the way, right? We trip, we fall, we go backwards, right? All of those sorts of things. And I think that's why it's so important with being in community as you follow Jesus, because we hold each other accountable, we support one another, and when slip ups happen, we're there to pray for one another, we're there to support one another rather than point the finger and say, look what you're doing, right? And condemn. So I think the reality is, for people who are navigating faith, or who are people who are questioning their faith or questioning Jesus and question Christianity, I think just continue that investigation, right? Get into a community of faith. I think just observing the Bible on your own or just praying on your own, all that's great, don't get me wrong. But if you really want to pursue what that actually looks like, get into a vibrant community of faith where you're seeing the things that are talked about in the Bible happening there, right? Where prayers happening, where people are welcome from all walks of life, where there's care, where there's concern, where there's love, where peace and working together is a goal, right? And I think there you'll see some of the greater dynamics of what a Christian looks like. Still not perfect.
Well, I think that's part of it. So I want to share a little bit of just my journey through this. And I think part of it is I've done some trainings at the church, and one was about the fact that we're a bunch of porcupines and we bump into each other, and I don't like your quills and I'm cranky with your quills. But that's part of it too, is how do we come together and show grace and mercy for people who are different than us or who have rougher edges. For me, I think that there are a number of things that come to mind. Early on, when I was at the church and I was kind of dipping my toe in, Randy got up. Randy was the former lead pastor, and he said something about disciples making disciples. And I was like, screw that, live and let live. I'm out of here. I'm not telling anyone else what to do.
Yeah.
And it was Steve Munson's wife who was standing next to me, and I was really close to the door. And I said something, and she looked at me and she said, great question. And God gave you a brain to question all of these things. Don't leave. Keep questioning. Get into conversations. And in my, are you kidding me attitude, she was like, you are loved and welcomed here.
That's right.
And she doesn't know it, but she was such a linchpin for me staying, and I never left. And so that was my first experience. My second experience was I was broke. I was dead broke. I had a commission only job. I wasn't getting child support. And there were months where I would sit on my couch crying and talking to God, and I have no way of paying the bills. And numerous times I went to the vineyard, and I went to my family of origin who was not willing to help me. But anytime I called the church and I needed help with my rent or help with groceries or help with something else, it was like it was no problem. Come in, let's talk about what you need. And the church helped me through some of my most difficult stages. And as a result, me and my youngest, Dominique, went and we started working in the food pantry. And it was so amazing to, number one, see that as difficult as our life was, there were people with so much more difficulties. And so there was this perspective, there was this sense of gratitude, there was this just beautiful sense of, even while I'm struggling, I can serve.
Yeah.
And that was, and our food pantry is incredible. We help so many people. And that the fact that, people in our community tithe, and then such a nice chunk of that money just goes right back into the larger community to help. And we feed and we pray for. And that was such a blessing. And it was so much more intimate than anything I had ever done in the Catholic Church, for instance.
Yeah, I think you said it too, right? That's what is so important about a community of faith, right? That it's beyond the Sunday experience. It's beyond some guy reading from a book and speaking about stuff that might go over your head or might not, right? Like it's life, it's doing life together. And that's, yes, I do need help, but I still am in a position to help
Yeah.
someone else. That's the whole intention of community of faith, is to come as you are, or be who you are, and you can have a seat at the table, not only to eat because you're hungry, but also to serve others who are next to you who are
Yeah.
hungry as well, right? Like it's all about that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that for my audience of people, you get divorced, you're not engaging as much with your married friends because culturally it becomes different. And I always say that if you could find a faith community that resonates with you, like then you're finding your people. And for me, the depth of my friends in general, and certainly girlfriends, is so deep and wide and broad, and people who I can sit with and cry with and share my fears and my pains and my struggles and support. And that, I think that as I've been doing this divorce coaching for 15 years, there are so many people who are so isolated and
Yeah.
don't have that. And it's easy when your kids are in school and you become friends with your kids'
Sure.
friends' parents. But
Sure.
when you get past that, it's like, how do you do this? And having, and I'll say a healthy, because I think it's important to have a healthy faith-based community, that it can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge, Karen. I think one of the biggest challenges I think people face when they go through dark seasons is not just what's going on in their lives that creates the darkness. It's also the feeling that you're doing it alone, right? That you're isolated, that there's no one else that understands, there's no one else that knows, or there's no one else that has gone through this and has come out on the other end, right? Successful or whatever it may be. And so as you're navigating these dark seasons, I think having that doing something or having that community available to walk alongside you and support you is so important.
Yeah, and there's so many things that when I look at my journey, and even entering the coaching, I had a lot of divorce debt. And I remember every Sunday in our church, there's a prayer team. So at the end of service, you can go up for prayer. And I've had my body healed. I've had incredible words spoken that really guided me. And in this one season, I kept going up and asking God if I should go into this life coaching. It was going to be like a $10,000 ticket. I didn't have any money. I owed my mom money. I was a commission only salesperson. I wasn't barely making the bills. And yet it just seemed like I should do it. And somebody taught me to pray, blow the door open if it's for me and slam it closed. I need black and white.
That's right.
And the door just kept blowing open. And my mom forgave some debt that I had for her so that I could take out the loan. And then, even as I went through it after that, I started coaching in 2010. I just started building my business. And then Hurricane Sandy hit in 2012, and I lost every client I had. And again, I'm on my knees in church and I'm like, God, like how do I keep these kids alive? Like, what do I do? And I got this really clear message, keep coaching. And I went to the pastor and I went to the head of the women's ministry and I was like, I'll coach anybody who needs coaching. And I was coaching all these people for free because I thought, if I stop coaching, I'm going to lose my confidence. And if I have a gift, then, and I'm being told to keep doing it, let me keep doing it. And Ray, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but like within a year, there was so many raving fans within the Vineyard community going, Karen did this for me, and I did this with Karen, and this was great, and and I started getting flooded with first with the church community, and then of course it rippled out to the people that I work with going through divorce. But it was just, I feel like each step of the way, God has been teaching me, you don't have to fear.
That's
You
right.
really don't have to fear. You just have to keep your eyes on me. You have to keep leaning in. When you can't see what's happening around the bend,
Yeah.
that's when your faith is the most important. And I've had some big struggles with my kids too, where I just, every time I leaned in, no matter how hard my circumstances were, there was this comfort, this peace, this kind of knowing that I was going to be okay, they were going to be okay, it was going to be okay. And I think that had so much to do with the leadership in the church, the community in the church, and that openness. And folks, you come to our church and there are days where you're going to hear someone like bawling their eyes out, and a bunch of people just come around them, put their hand gently on them and start praying for them, and just miracles happen. And it's just been such an incredible journey.
Yeah. 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 That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Walking alongside one another as we navigate the joys and the sorrows of life, right? And I think once again that isolation piece is so difficult as people navigate life, especially today's culture with internet and phones, right? Like we are so isolated. And even through COVID, that just added another layer to it
Yeah.
where there's almost this ability to do anything and everything without people around. And the reality is, we weren't created to do life alone by any means. And so to be able to have space and a place to connect with other people and the joys and the sorrows of life just makes it so much better, so much easier as we navigate this thing called life,
Yeah.
right? And I think you also mentioned too, Karen, this ability to experience peace that surpasses understanding, right? To know that everything's going to be okay in the midst of the mess, when you're at the
Yeah.
bottom of the barrel and out of nowhere, I would call it supernaturally, you have this feeling that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And there's nothing like that in the world. There's absolutely nothing like that in the world.
And I think that for me, I learned through my divorce how controlling I was.
Mm.
And I thought my ex was so controlling, but I learned how controlling I was. And I began the practice of surrender over a decade ago. And I think that the combination of having faith, having a spiritual foundation that you can stand so solidly on, and being able to surrender that which we have no control over, right? Which is so much. I have control over my head, my heart. I no longer have control over my people. They're in their 20s, they have full control over themselves. So I have very little control. And when I'm grasping everywhere else, which I spent a lifetime doing, it's exhausting, it's disempowering. And that concept of I can do everything I can do, I'm responsible for my effort. But then at the end of it, that's where we all worry and freak out and ruminate. And really, the invitation is you've done everything.
That's
Leave it
right.
at the foot of the cross.
Right.
Like
Right.
surrender and trust. And if it goes away, and this is where I am now in my life, if I surrender and trust and it goes away, that is not my way,
Hmm.
it's okay.
That's right.
Because I trust that God's will be done. And whatever he has planned, even if it looks like a hot mess, it's for me and I'm going to get through it and I'm going to be stronger and I'm going to be more able. And Ray knows that I've had some really big struggles over the years with both of my kids that had me on my knees, crying a
Yeah.
river,
Yeah.
scared to death, at the edge of myself. And 2020 hindsight, it built such a foundation of faith and
Hmm.
strength. It built such a beautiful relationship with each of my kids as I navigated it the way that I did. And I truly believe that talk about things being for you. When I look at my path and my traumas and my difficulties, and I think I get to do what I do now. And I can
Hmm.
only do it because I've actually walked these really, really hard walks over and
That's
over
right.
again. And when people come to me and they jump on our call and they start sharing and I can relate and I can talk about I've been there. I'm not just theoretically understanding you, but I've been there and I hear you and I feel you and I can support them in a way that I never would be able to if I didn't walk this walk. And so it's like, yeah, did I go through hell and back a few times?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
stronger for it and I'm better for it. And I'm blessed to be able to support human beings who aren't as far down the road as me. And that's the only difference, right? It's like I'm not better. I'm just a little further down the road and I have something to pay back. And it just, I feel so blessed. I feel so incredibly blessed to be able to do what I do in the world. And I feel like in many ways that chapter of my life began when I stepped out of religion and into relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge, Karen. And I think what you realized even through that dark season of divorce that you have some control issues, right? And I think the reality is we all do. We all do, right? Some people are clearly more open about it, and then others could be completely quiet, and you think that they are Mr. and Mrs. Go with the flow, right? And they may be in a lot of senses that way, but internally, there's control issues that they're dealing with, and I think that's part of the human condition.
Yeah.
We want to be God over everything in our lives.
Yes, we do.
And we get so frustrated when things get dark or things get out of our control. That's when we hit our rock bottom, where we can't control outcomes. And the reality is, we can't control every outcome. And when we are in that space of acknowledging that a God does exist who is in control, and regardless of the outcome, you know that you will be okay because he's with you, right? And he will provide everything that you need. And when you experience that peace that surpasses all understanding, and then you step back and know that God will handle what he needs to handle, and you handle what you need to handle, things work out the way that they should, right?
Yeah.
And so coming to that reality also usually doesn't happen. You don't usually wake up and be like, oh,
No.
yeah, of course. I'm trying to control a situation, right? It comes through trial, right? It happens as you go through those. What a great author who I love, Ruth Haley Barton, she calls it, and I know other theologians and other writers call it the dark night of the soul, right? You
Mm.
go through that dark space where you feel not only the situation that you are going through, you feel completely out of control, but you also feel alone, right? And going through those things and experiencing peace that surpasses understanding because you are surrendering the outcome to God and you are trusting that all things will work together for your good. And that's the promise. That's the promise through our relationship with Jesus, that all things, not just the good things, but also the bad things, the dark things, the awful things, will work together for our good. And Karen, you're sitting here helping other people navigate their darkest seasons because you are proof of that, right? And as you share the dark seasons that you've navigated, and even while you were going through them, feeling like, what is happening, right? Like, God is what, I don't, how. And then being in this space today, healed,
Mm.
and God bringing you through, but then also having a story to tell, living proof that God's promises do hold true in your life, in the lives of those that you love. It's gold.
Yeah.
It's gold.
And I think that the people listening, there's so much fear when you're in this place. Your family's falling apart. And the dads are feeling like they lost their position as the leader of the household. And maybe they've been told that they've been a bad parent because they've been the primary earner. And so many of the moms have been in relationships where they've been so diminished and harmed. And so the fear is off the charts. And one of the things I notice is my clients or my group members will come to me and say they're winning because, and I have this perspective, and it's like, well, the fat lady hasn't sung yet. Like you haven't reached the promise. Don't give up yet. And yes, those things are happening. And yes, they're really hard. And yes, we can talk about what you can do in terms of your emotional regulation, your mindset, your strategy, your legal stuff. But at the end of the day, when you can lean in and trust, and I think that's what's so hard. And I often will ask the question, like, upon what spiritual ground do you stand when life gets difficult? That's a question I ask almost everybody who first comes to me. And it doesn't matter what your faith or your ground is. If you have a ground, we have something to work with. And in my humble opinion, whether it's God or Yeshua or Allah, or we have many languages in the world. So
Yeah.
God is not surprised that people have different names for him and different ways of seeing him. And yet God is unconditional love. And when we can stand firm, lean in, and trust that whatever I'm afraid of, this power so much greater than me has my back, was part of creating me. I always say to my clients, he wasn't surprised. Like he's not going like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. Like we are protected completely. And I think I had heard once in one of the rooms that fear and faith can't reside in the same place. And that was something I held on to a lot. I would, and I still do. It's like when I get scared, and in total transparency, these days I get scared about my business because things are so wonky financially and stuff. And as a small business owner, we have a lot of ebbs and flows. But the minute I'm in fear, I like it just comes to me. It's like, okay, well, if you're in fear, you're not in faith, Karen. Can you just do that pivot? What's it going to take you to do that pivot? And I think part of the walk, and for me, 2009, I got baptized. So it's 16 years ago. I have temporary amnesia on a regular basis. I forget to pray, I forget to have faith. And then it's like, oh, wait a second. Oh, wait a second. That's the answer. And so all these years into it. And do you have that happen sometimes
Oh,
too?
100%. 100%, Karen. I think one of the things that I navigate to in my personal relationship with Jesus is to practice what I preach, right? Oftentimes, as I'm preparing a sermon, when it comes specifically, I would say that in particular, when it comes to fear and anxiety, as I'm preparing this, I'm like, ooh, that was for me. That was for me, right? Like, uh, I'm gonna preach about this. I gotta work on this week, right? And it's because we're human, right? And I think our human condition is to rely on our own power. That's it. That's our human condition, to be in control and rely on our own power. And so fear and anxiety come in when we are out of control and our own power is no longer working, no longer at play, or we're dealing with powers that are bigger than us or greater than
Yeah.
us. And so when we can trust and rely that there is a God that exists who is big, who exists inside and outside of time, who is that big, but also knows and cares about you so much that he knows all the hairs on your head. I mean, it's easy for me, right?
Yeah.
But he knows you that well, and his desire is for you to acknowledge him, to acknowledge his existence, to acknowledge that he's with you, and it's for your benefit. That's the beauty of this, right? It's the beauty of a relationship with Jesus. It's for your benefit. He's not desiring you call me God and I'm the one and tell everyone and point towards me. Oh, no, he want the benefit is for you, is to do life with him. And I think that's also, I think, the context too that gets lost amongst followers of Jesus, amongst Christians, is we have this tendency to think that we do everything for him.
Right.
And then in that for him sort of thing, it creates this dividing line between us and God. And he's up here and we're down here and we're doing everything for him. And I think honestly, it creates frustration. And the reality is that wasn't God's design, specifically through Jesus, is that we do life with him.
Yeah.
That's the invitation, that we get to do life with him by our side, that we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to be anxious. We don't have to feel like we're alone because he's with us. And that's the key difference between a religion where we're doing these things for versus relationship where we're doing these things with. It makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that was really awkward in the beginning and so comfortable now is praying. Like when I first came to the vineyard, I was like, oh my God, these people pray so beautifully. Like I knew the Our
Right.
Father art in heaven, like this whole thing, like I knew what I memorized. And then someone was like, no, you can just talk to him. And I was like, what are you talking about? Just talk to him.
Right.
Yeah,
He's
no,
God.
just say what you want to say. And then some of our church members are so eloquent, and I would listen and I'd be like, I can't say anything. I can't open my mouth
Right.
and pray.
How do
Like
I follow that one up?
it just like, yeah, it was intimidating.
Yeah.
And over the last 15 years, I have prayed for so many clients, and of course, I ask permission,
Yeah.
and it's always a blessing for me. But to see the blessing it is for them, and of all walks of faith, to be like, yes, yes, please do. And then part of my daily practice is when I'm sitting and I'm praying in the morning, an individual will come into my mind and I'll have them on my calendar. I know that they're going to court or they're dealing with some big struggle, and I'll sit there and I'll pray for them. And sometimes I'll even take a picture of one of my daily devotionals and send it to them and just say, this, when I read it, it just sounded like it was for you. And I just want to bless you with this. And I've mailed books to clients, and I've quietly been the hands and feet. And today I'm really excited to be talking to you and sharing with the listeners this very vulnerable, very powerful, very central part of who I am and why I do what I do. And I always pray that God would expand my territory a thousandfold, that we would be able to help so many more people. And I feel like he's been like, talk about me, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
About me, Karen. I'm like, no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I don't want to offend anyone. I don't
I
want
know.
to, I don't want to turn anyone away. I don't want anyone listening thinking that if you don't agree with me, you can't listen anymore and you
Right.
can't get the help that we have to offer. I don't want to be in the toxic Christianity camp. I love the saying, preach the Bible and every now and again use words. Like, I love that, because just be the hands and feet, just be the unconditional love, the non-judgment, the willingness to stretch and to help and to give and to serve and to be generous when you don't even have anything to give. Do that. And that's the faith that works for me.
Yes.
And it's been nice to be able to be here with you and share this with the listeners.
Absolutely. Honor and a privilege. And I think that's the other thing too. I think when we think about Christianity, especially if you're on the outside looking in, you feel like you have to become something, or there's going to be so many elements of your life, of the essence of who you are is going to change. And that is complete falsehood.
Yeah.
The beauty of it is he uses who you are He created who you are, right? He just wired us uniquely. And so when we acknowledge his presence with us, acknowledge him and who he is in our lives, he uses those things that are already within us and who we are to help others, to be an assistance to others, to allow that light to shine. And so I think that's part of it. And then I think for you specifically, Karen, too, if you allow me to speak directly, is you are a coach who is a follower of Jesus. That's it. He's wired you that way to be a coach who is a follower of Jesus, right? You don't necessarily have to be the individual who's a Christian coach, right? That some people are like, that's fine. There's
Yeah.
nothing right, wrong, or indifferent about that. But for you specifically, and the abilities that God's given you, and the lives that you've been able to touch and be a part of and walk alongside of, it's because He's wired you to be a coach that is a daughter of the living God, that is a follower of Jesus, right? And so it comes out naturally in how you walk alongside people, and it's just a natural way of doing it. One of the things that we we speak of in our church is naturally supernatural, right? Where nothing has to be cooked up. We don't have to put all these titles in front of how things operate, right? We just be who we are and trust that God uses the gifts and the talents and the essence of who He's created us to be to allow the light to shine through us. And Karen, you've done that and you continue to do that so beautifully. And I think your level of authenticity has just kicked up 1,000 notches because you're sharing an aspect of your life that is really not even just part of who you are. It's essentially who you are. And now people can actually say, oh, that's why that's happening. Or this is why I'm feeling this way when I talk with Karen, right? There's other things going on because you don't have to talk about it. You just don't talk about it, be about it, right? And be the hands and feet of
Yeah.
Jesus. And you're able to do that in such a natural way. And I think you will continue to be a blessing to others. And if anything, now that you've come out, I think God will use this as an opportunity to advance whatever He's already doing with you. And
Yeah.
it could look a million different ways. But once again, that's His job, right? You've
Yeah.
done your part. He's
Yeah.
going to do the rest. So I'm
Beautiful. Well,
excited.
thank you so much for that, Ray. Would you close our session here with a prayer for my audience?
I'd be honored. I'd be
Thank you.
honored. God, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for Karen and everything that you brought her through, the good and the bad, to be who she is today and how she can continue to be a blessing to others as they walk through some of the darkest seasons of their lives, God. And right now, I just take this opportunity to pray for everyone who's listening, no matter what they're navigating right now. God, I just pray that they realize that they are not alone, that you are present, that they don't have to be able to pray a specific prayer or be a certain way, that if they just acknowledge you there, acknowledge who you are, God, that you can show up in some amazing ways as they walk through the valleys of their lives, God. And I just pray right now for peace for everyone who's navigating a dark season, a peace to know, God, that no matter what the outcome is, all things will work together for our good because you are with us. So I pray peace that surpasses all understanding for every listener today. That they're able to trust and have peace. I ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Ray, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to
Yeah.
see you do your thing and be a part of this monumental
Yeah.
podcast. You express
Thank you.
absolutely.
And I just want to say if this has provoked something in you, if you have a question, if you'd like to connect, Karen at journeybeyonddivorce.com. That's where you find me, and I would be delighted to have a conversation. And thank you for listening and supporting Journey Beyond Divorce. And we'll be back again real soon, and I'll be talking a little bit more about faith as we go forward. So you have a beautiful day.
God bless.